This is the free club. This is the free club. The free club doesn't care about your feelings. Shape up.
This was a horrible mistake. Welcome to the Flick Lab.
Well, but that's basically the entire product.
Yeah, which can be found on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Oh, and I almost forgot Twitter.
And that'll be that. Thank you, beautiful listeners. So let's see you next week.
Yeah. See you then. Yeah. I'm glad that I thought you the ways of getting out of here a little bit quicker in our previous episode of Shandalu. Okay, so yeah, I'm Kari. I think you are, I don't know, tell me.
Muad'Dib.
This is what the show is about. We go through international cinema mostly, but now we go to Hollywood and Dune. And this is the kind of film podcast where we do horrible mistakes every week. Why did we choose to watch this film now, Henrik?
I'm guessing it's because previously we checked out The Staggering Girl and you picked up Kyle MacLachlan. So now this is some kind of post Kyle hard on. They're going through the process. You have had your hard on, and now you are desperately trying to somehow emulate something with your floppy.
Well, if there ever was a hard on, there's no more hard on. But fortunately, we are doing something that we have been talking about previously that we could do, that we could go hopping from one movie to the next by kind of a thread that kind of links them all. So Kyle MacLachlan in Staggering Girl, Kyle MacLachlan here, but we will also go through the new Dune. Oh my god, from 2020 when it's coming out, and
Are we really? Because that's not something that we have actually discussed.
actually we did just last week. What happened to you?
Yeah, it was just last week, and that was the whole experience. Like there isn't this isn't the case where we have had like weeks and months of dreaming that we are going to once again approach this project. Also, that this is something that was, like you said, just last week.
Yeah, and I'm willing to stand by my words. And therefore, at least it's gonna have Timothée Chalamet. So, and worms, and yeah. Okay. Yeah, and Dune is the hot shit right now because Dune is coming out. So let's check out the 1994 edition, Henrik, or Muad'Dib. There's 3 different cuts of this film. There's the theatrical TV version, which is a 2-parter over 3 hours, disowned by Lynch himself, and it's directed by someone who calls himself Alan Smithy. That's a pretty good fella, that Alan Smithy. I mean, compared to the theatrical version of Lynch. So good job there. Post-production cut without the visual effects, that was about 4 hours. Lynch targeted almost 3 hours for the final version, and but the financiers wanted a 2-hour cut, but Lynch never had another cut. Then the theatrical cut, contrary to some rumors that he actually had another cut. Film was a catastrophic box office bomb, barely got its money back. Hated by the director. Director complained that he had no artistic control, as in the sense of final cut. This was a long time coming. In the 70s, they already were trying to do something with Dune. There was Alejandro Jodorowsky, the director, who was trying to make this into a reality with Dan O'Bannon in the visual effects department with H.R. Giger or Giger or however you pronounce that, and Jean Giraud and Chris Foss as artist buddies together. So this is the kind of the work that was put in that influenced Alien and had much of the same creative team. 1979, Ridley Scott was hired. He was along for the ride for about 7 months. Ridley wanted to split the story into two films. Interestingly, Battle of Algiers was used as a reference point for the script. But during this Dune project, Ridley's brother died, and he didn't have the heart to continue script development, which he thought that it would need at least 2.5 years of extra work. Lynch was then found thanks to his Elephant Man film. Lynch turned down Return of the Jedi in order to do Dune, the Star Wars for the grown-ups. A guy who had never been interested in sci-fi and had not never read the book, at least prior. And two sequels were on the pipeline, but that pipeline was cut in half. What the fuck is the Dune about, Henrik?
Well, it's about actually quite a lot of things. It's about environmentalism. It's about sci-fi. It's about new worlds. It's about mysticism. It's about different religions. It's about how and why myths are created and how they can exist. It's about political intrigue. It's about survival struggle. It's about war, both on a grander scale and in guerrilla form. And somewhere along the lines, it's also about space travel and terraforming a planet to inhabitable environment.
And some sort of simpletonism, if I could call it that. These people on the planet have, or planets have been exposed to too much space radiation, clearly, and stopped developing as a race, since we still have concepts such as religion. We have weird psychic concepts tied with everything. We have gotten rid of technology, except not all technology. We have gotten rid of just the intelligent technology. And somehow we are not allowed to have technology on our spaceships, except for this spice infested or spice junkie mutated piece of shit who is flying these ships around the cosmos.
You are allowed to have technology. Technology itself hasn't been banned. What is banned is AIs, or
Yeah,
as they are referred in the story, the thinking computers or thinking machines.
yeah. Well, where do you draw the line? It's an interesting concept, but they have somehow
Well,
managed.
is a what do you mean? Where do you draw the line?
Yeah, what is AI and what is not AI? Clearly, there's a lot of
Is
tech.
your coffee? Do you have a coffee maker in your apartment?
Yes,
Is it a machine
yes.
or a person? Is it a self-thinking machine? Is it controlled by AI?
No, and neither is a fucking spaceship. But here they have replaced spaceships with some gooey piece of shit that has gotten enough radiation that he's apparently able to fly these fucking ships around the space. Are you fucking kidding me?
Precisely. That's how AI works in Dune universe. Like technology itself is allowed. What is not allowed is AIs.
Yeah,
So
except.
you can have your coffee maker and you can have your spaceship as long as the spaceship is not being controlled by an artificial intelligence.
Do you know a concept called cars? Does your family have a car?
They do.
Is it a thinking car?
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's technology. Just exactly like planes are technology, cars are technology. So why the fuck they are flying these spaceships with some kind of a mutated monster instead of having technology on the goddamn ship, which they obviously also do? So why replace the driver with the gooey
Well,
shit,
the ship does have technology.
right?
That's how it flies. Same
Right?
way as your car has technology. That's how the human drives the car.
Yeah, I guess
There's like engine and
right.
like mechanical components under
Yeah,
the hood.
yeah, and you think a fucking spaceship with AI is going to be dangerous for you if it's going to drive the fucking vehicle from place X to place Y. Interesting concept.
See.
Seriously.
The ban in artificial intelligence happens because of previous event that has
I
happened
know,
in the Dune universe,
I know, and
which
they
is the
not
Butlerian
yeah,
Jihad.
exactly, and they now they think that the fucking spaceships are going to turn into jihad machines against them just because they have some
No,
kind of
no,
a
they simply are not willing to take the risk the second time. Instead, what humanity in Dune universe has done is it has the humanity itself has evolved to a point where they no longer need AIs. They just use humans for that work, which typically was signed for artificial intelligences.
yeah, completely believable. Okay, then we have
Well, that's a question. Do you believe in human evolution when it comes into mental capabilities,
well, clearly not.
or do you see that humanity is too stupid to ever reach that point?
Obviously, we have the proof in the fucking book and in the goddamn film. As you see, we have still religion.
Uh,
We have super duper archaic ways to have grab of power. There are these holier than thou fucking leaders on that planet, and then there is other leaders on this planet that are waging a fucking war. So much for the fucking growing up as a race in the fucking 10,000 years.
are you now making the case that religious people are stupid?
I'm making the point that this is completely illogical. And it's quite surprising that they have been able to survive thus far with such of a mentality and all this you are our holy leader. We are waiting for our messiah to come. All these extremely archaic concepts. And in the end the guy is not even a fucking magician or Jesus. He's just a normal bloke who just happens to be in a high position of power. But the movie, of
Yeah,
course,
that changes between are you talking about the book or the film?
yeah, we're talking about
Because
the
there,
book,
there are
definitely.
adaptational differences between the two works.
Yeah. And much maligned differences in this film, where the Messiah is making it rain on the planet and is. But what the fuck is wrong with that, even? If you think about what's been happening throughout at least this film, and what I understand is also in the book, the much that I have been able to read it, the goddamn book, there is the concept of weirding way, and it's a goddamn weird way. Definitely not something from out of this world, which is brought on by the spice.
No, the weirding way is basically it is a battle style in the book. It's something like I don't know, Matrix or Equilibrium style weapon used kung fu or something like that. The weirding way is never really truly explained, like what it is, what is the specific move sets of weirding way in the book, but it's more of a fighting style. Something like advanced kung fu, advanced karate, whatever you wanna mirror it to. If you're talking about the film, on the other hand, yeah, the weirding way gets way more complicated and obscure.
Yeah, there is also the hardest stone possible. This whole stone demonstration is not in the book. This destroying of objects with the power of sound in it, but it's part of the weirding way here.
No, there's a quite a lot of stuff that are really heavy differences between the book and the film. Dune, 1984 movie by David Lynch. When it comes to adaptation, it's kind of a similar case as was with Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. It takes it takes the basic building blocks: weird hotel somewhere, ghosts, family, black man, and then it kind of just does its own thing from there on.
Exactly. Then we have the spice. Then we have the worms. Worms that create spice or some such. We have the spice that is necessary in the universe, and it's only in the one planet in the entire cosmos. And there it has to be cultivated, and people are fighting to grab the power. Whoever grabs this planet is in the grabs of power.
Yeah, because basically in Dune universe you need the spice basically everything. It's highly addictive. That's the first thing that comes with the spice. So essentially, the power trio when it comes to the main leaders of the houses, when it comes to the emperor, and when it comes to the spacing guild, all the major factions, they are more or less just addicts
Yeah, fucking drug
running
addicts.
in control. But on top of its addictive tendencies, the spice is also used for interstellar travel and other such feats that are possible in Dune's universe. So if you would like to contrast spice into something that exists more in our universe, spice essentially is oil. You can think it that way. And the dependency of spice is kind of the dependency on oil cramped up to 4 or 5.
Yeah, essentially this is Saddam versus Vladimir. Frank Herbert is just taking the piss out of you all here. And then we have giant worms and
Well,
spices, and we have the baddie who isn't really even a baddie, but the guy has an HIV virus and is in the age stages, needing some pumping to his face. And in a weird scene, he apparently kills one of his sex slaves or something, and just kind of cuts his
yeah,
system
something like
off.
that.
Yeah, and is having a hard on for Sting, and then calls for his doctor. Completely bizarre.
Uh-huh.
Completely fucking bizarre.
How is that completely bizarre?
Well, we have a
Is
bad guy who has AIDS and wants to have help with that. He is depicted as the bad guy, and clearly this seems to be he's shown to be a homosexual character here. At least he happens to have a particular hard on for Sting. Well, I
yep, yep,
guess
yep, 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 yep.
who
Okay.
doesn't accept me, but that's how it's done in the
Yeah,
1984s.
yeah. Like I'm completely lost here. Like, what is the main problem? The fact that Baron Vladimir Harkonnen is incestual homosexual
Yeah, who is a
and the
bad.
main bad guy of the film.
Pretty much, pretty much. So clearly, the
Come
filmmakers have
on,
something
come
to
on.
say about homosexuality here and how they're spreading the evil disease. So, I have a great fucking idea. Well, let's make our villain a homosexual with AIDS. Okay.
Oh my god. You do realize that this podcast has gone through racism, racial segregation, and other hard topics, and not gotten too convoluted, not getting too emotional about these issues.
Yeah, yeah. And what's your point?
Well, do you need a goddamn safe space from a film from 1984? Is David Lynch rustling your chimneys there? Like,
This is just the point where I have kind of had it with this kind of bullshit. I have not just it doesn't really have anything with homosexuality. This is just the kind of the where I have reached the point of like I'm done with a stupid fucking sci-fi at this point. I'm so fucking done with it. The I'm so fucking done.
so what makes it stupid fucking sci-fi? The religion and the fact that bad guy is hobos.
Well, yeah, those two. The religion part is pretty obnoxious.
Jeez,
Of course.
jeez.
Look, easy.
Come on,
My God.
Stop it up, man.
My,
Stop it up.
I'm done.
This
Serious.
is
Who
this
in
is the
the?
free club. This is the free club. The free club doesn't care about your feelings.
I
Shave off.
certainly don't. I certainly don't give a hell about the listeners' feelings. There you go. So you think whatever you might want to give. I don't listen. I don't care about the listeners'
Oh, God.
feelings. I'm telling you right now that people have gone in. We are talking about future here, future, and this close-minded Frank Herbert thinks in his little tiny frame of reference box that 10,000 years into the future, we still have concepts as religion, and we're somehow able to coexist between planets and fucking universe. And then there's like one leader on one planet and second leader on other planet, and they are not able to keep the peace. I don't buy this for a fucking flying second.
Why wouldn't there be a religion in the future?
Because it's dumb. we listen.
Oh my god!
Yeah. I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm done
yeah,
with
yeah,
all
yeah.
of this. Seriously.
Do you remember? Do you remember in our past episodes when I was like that you have actually cried with religion?
There you go.
And you are anti-religion behind the scenes, and you were like, no, I'm not. Stop putting words into my mouth. But these are your words coming out of your goddamn mouth now.
Yeah. I'm. Let's say I'm coming completely. Yeah. I'm coming completely clean. I'm done with this. Who is gonna buy this? And
well, religion about billion people.
religion and
Sci-fi.
religion and messiah concepts 10,000 years into the future. Are you fucking kidding me? I will.
Well, I don't see why they would necessarily go extinct. I mean, religion and beliefs have been humanity pretty much from the get-go up until this point. So, what would make religion extinct in the future?
Listen, man, listen.
Okay. Yeah, I'm listening.
Yeah. So listen then, goddammit. So they have had a war thousands of years or something before them related to the machines. They know how machines work. They have had extremely advanced AI. So advanced, in fact, that they are almost annihilated by these goddamn machines. And they still carry on with them concept like religion. I just don't buy that this is possible. And well, if you are willing to accept that we are still going on with these concepts that are coming from fucking fairy tales that some douchebags created 2,000 years ago at this point. What about this spice and the worms? A planet full of sand, and then there are worms that create spice. That is magical. And you can control the universe with that and do light speed travel or create wormholes with your space alien creature that is driving your spaceship. Okay. Fine.
Yeah, I don't see the huge difference to our modern times. Like they have had devastating wars, so have had we. We still carry religion. We also have natural resources to which we are kind of a dependent on. We are still fucking oil economy globally. So basically, in Dune, what you have today's problems. They just haven't been solved in all that time that takes from now to whenever Dune happens. And I still fail to see what gives you the guarantee that humanity will somehow evolve past religion. Like freely explain what is the one thing that will make religion obsolete to humanity?
Probably will not completely disappear ever, but it has such of a stranglehold. Because if you look at countries now, we are becoming more secular and secular. Look at something like Estonia, even Finland. We basically are nobody. There is a actual minority now that is still believing in some kind of a holy spirits and such. The more we get to know technology, I see, and the more that we have access to information, the less we will have religion.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, like,
and certainly that is a possibility.
Yeah,
that's a possibility, but I don't see that as an absolute, because I would say that majority of the world even today and we are having kind of a technological renaissance as we are speaking, it still is hugely religious. Like even Finland, since you name dropped our loved home country, it still is hugely religious. Religion in Finland, Christianity in Finland is not any kind of a minority position. It's not that in US. And if something, Finland is just coming more and more religious now, because not just Christianity, but we are getting all the other religions like Islam and Judaism into the mix also. There's a hell of a lot of religion going on in Finland.
I think, well, it's inevitable that as we're getting different cultures into our country, then there is going to be at least a momentary lapse into the world of more religions. But well, I'm sure that the main problem here is that Frank Herbert is just willing to think outside of his own truncated frame of reference and wants to introduce the concepts that we have already had. Like I mean this movie is talking about concepts and structures that were more popular like during the fucking the pharaoh's time or something like that. This is some kind of a pharaohic system of monarchy.
And not really, no. You have to keep in mind that well, Arrakis is essentially the sand planet of Dune. When it comes to the feudal rule, that actually happens outside of Arrakis.
Yeah,
If you're talking about the Emperor and other power players of the story, they are not Arrakis.
yeah. So
It's
yeah, yeah.
well,
I'm just
well,
drawing a
you
parallel that Herbert is kind of taking some kind of age-old concepts and putting them into 10,000 years in the future for some unknown reason. Like there is nothing even the time when he had written these concepts were already kind of obsolete and some kind of a bygones, but now he's introducing them back into the future, which I find kind
what
of
what 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 concept was obsolete in Herbert's era? Like, are we still talking about religion?
no, we're not talking about religion. We're talking about modern
Okay.
societies. I'm pretty sure that he didn't live in an environment where we have such of a leaders, this kind of a monarchic or oligarchic leaders who are able to have a great amount of power for themselves and they talk of these people as some kind of a messiahs or my lady or addressing them in these fancy ways of the yesteryears. So in a sense, a
I
person
I
cult.
I I I don't know. I don't know. Frank Herbert lived in U.S.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Did he have to address
yeah.
his boss as my lady?
Well, not his boss necessarily, but he lived in country where, for example, today, now in these enlightened days, one man is gonna make country great again, gonna lead the charge against the degenerates,
Riding a
and
giant
basically gonna
worm.
pussy whip the entire world.
Riding a giant worm with
It
his love buddy, sharing kind of a loving gazes at his friend Ed Killifer more than twice.
yeah. So is the main problem now the worms?
No, there's so many problems.
Because what I'm getting at here is that you wanted to present the personal cult that the Emperor commands in Dune fiction as something that is obsolete. It
Yeah,
was obsolete already in Frank Herbert's time,
yeah,
but well, they ain't obsolete. Not today. I mean, even in US, the president commands very strong personal cult. You could see that in Reagan era. You could see that in Nixon era. Hell, you could see that in Bush era. Even though the personal cult was not really strong during Bush Junior's timeline, he still was able to essentially rule the country and introduced very draconian laws that were he was able to pass. So he
yeah,
had
yeah.
that kind of a total control. And now you have Trump,
Yeah.
who also commands very strong personal cult. And when it comes to concepts like kings and queens or emperors, they also ain't that far fetched. I mean, just look at the next border neighbor that we have. Sweden has a king. There still are countless
Well,
of
come
countries
on.
in the world that have the concept of king
Yeah.
or something similar to it.
Yeah.
So once again, I don't see how it's obsolete.
In the way that the king has basically zero power nowadays. It's just some guy who is sitting in a palace. But here we are talking about.
Some kings, yeah, king might have zero power these days. But for example, American president can have a hell of a lot of power. A sheikh can have a tremendous amount of power. An imam might have a tremendous amount of power. We still haven't really reached the state, the political evolution where basically the societies would have become so democratic and the peoples living in those societies would have become so liberal that we no longer would have like a hugely powerful one leadership character.
Yeah, I'm talking more about
One can even look goddamn Finland and our president, who true does not have that level of power to himself, but who still even in Finland, our current president commands extremely devoted personal cult.
Yeah, true. Talking about more of this, the way that these characters are presented, as the way they dress, as the way they talk and address each other. These are, I think, bygone concepts, at least in the modern world. I don't know about this. Yeah, we still have a problem of this kind of a person called, no doubt about it. But 10,000 years into the future, I seriously hope and think not, when you have such of a you have already conquered, I don't know, what was it, 10,000 different worlds, and still running life as we have been doing it a few thousand years ago. I think this is just
Yeah,
limited imagination
and
that we're
and
talking about on the screen and in the pages.
and this is where actually this whole discourse between the two of us gets really interesting for me, because once again, to revoice my previous question, what makes you certain that in the future we somehow have managed to move past of leaders and personal cults
Knowledge, experience.
and religion? Because because I'm and that might be, but I'm asking it because I haven't seen that personal and social evolution to happen, up until this point. Like we have knowledge, we have abundance of knowledge, and we have access to more experience that we can even fathom
Yeah,
at the moment,
and
and we are still stuck on these concepts.
do you see as us as a species being as much stuck as we had been during the pharaoh times versus now?
In certain aspects, I do.
Certain aspects, yeah, but there is.
Not technologically wise, because most likely that was the clever innuendo that you were going to have. That was going to be your major comeback. Do we sleep in the ditches and do we build pyramids? No, we don't.
No, we don't, and
But we do build churches, and
yeah,
we do
for
have
some
personal
goddamn
cults
reason.
still.
Yeah, which
And
is.
we do have different kind of concepts of forced labor. And if you are willing to take this far enough, we can even say that we even today we do have concepts of slavery,
Yeah.
even in the modern times. So yeah, you have coffee maker and you have indoor heating, and no, nobody is building pyramids anymore. But I wouldn't say that we have completely left and surpassed the time of the pharaohs. Hell, we
But
even have religion, and that was something that was in ancient Egypt also.
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, we don't have a crystal ball. Just saying that generally, it seems to me that every time I'm looking into some very mainstream and very popular sci-fi series, whether it would be coming from a book or from a movie or whichever way, we're dealing with this same goddamn concepts. I think these people just lack imagination that they have to put all of these same archaic systems into the play into the far future and same stupid goddamn conflicts. Yeah, sure, we are human and prone to these problems, but okay, worms and spies, those are pretty creative, but absolutely bonkers once again.
Yeah, but then again, science fiction is supposed to be at pretty bonkers at times. I'm 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 really curious about your reaction with Dune, because I would have thought that you would be more in with the story, seeing exactly how kind of critical of concepts of religion and beliefs and mysticism that the whole story in the end is.
Yeah, in the sense of the book, I hear that is kind of interesting that we have this first book as more of a kind of an introduction, and then we get to the lesser books in this series where it's actually explained very clearly that there is no magic involved really, that these are just some guys, who are not the rainmakers, who are do not have any superpowers. Well, they do, but they don't, because the guy himself
Yeah,
is not doing
and
his using using technology to do it.
yeah, and I would say that even the first book, and this is once again one where the adaptational differences come into play in a big way. But in the book, I would say it becomes blatantly clear that Paul is not space Jesus.
Yeah,
And essentially he and his mom, they are frauds. What happens because there was myth that was pre-planted amongst the Fremen, and and Paul has been more or less groomed to fit certain aspects of that legend. Some aspects of the legend were so kind of a universe and so also all around the place, and kind of so up to left to your own interpretation that pretty much anyone could trigger those points off, and or the rest of it is essentially just mental and physical mutation that the main character goes through.
isn't this episode supposed to be the part where you're gonna say that, listen, I've seen this Dune shit so many times, and I've seen it over and over, and so this is not really impressive that we're doing it once again, also in the book. And well, yeah, Dune introduced some themes that have been copied ever since, but I think this is the point where to go, that this is not really impressive because I've seen it 100 times.
Yeah, but then again, what haven't we seen hundred times? I don't
Exactly
think
my
that
point, though.
basically.
Exactly my point, though, because you have been saying in a lot of the recent episodes that, well, this is not really impressive because I've seen it 100 times before. But that's kind of what happens.
Yeah.
That's exactly how movies work, that they don't have necessarily anything much to offer anymore. They're recycling themes, and that's okay if the delivery is done well, which it is not in this film, by the way.
Yeah, but that's precisely that's my whole point that you just worded out. It comes down to the way how the delivery is being done. Like
Yeah, and I would argue that in many
in
films
the
it.
main point I was trying to do in the sprinkle episode way back when was that we shouldn't get too stuck up on concepts like the first, who did the thing first. What we should be more looking at is what is done with the thing. And my problem when it comes to the argument, I've seen this before, is not the fact that well, I really have seen it before, because in the end there is what, 5 or 7 different original stories in the whole world, and basically every other story is just some form of a retelling of those main stories, those basic stories. So of course I've seen all of that before. It comes down to execution and what is done with showing you the stuff that you already have seen. And when it comes to judging those factors, well, that once again, that is a matter of taste.
Right? But in a sense, the kind of a argument of I've seen it before, it doesn't have any face value because it's once again up to the interpretation or the delivery.
Of course, it doesn't have a face value. I merely use it to paraphrase, basically, or simplify my message,
Mm,
so that I wouldn't have to, give you an half an hour or an hour long lecture on would I recommend a film or not. Of course, it's a shorthand for me.
okay. We have been talking forever and we still haven't talked about the whole idea of what the hell the Dune is actually about. Well, do you want to go or do I want to go?
I'm,
So basically, there are these two parties who are fighting for the control of the planet Arrakis, where is this magical spice that needs to be protected because it's used as power to power basically people's special superpowers or their high ability of intellect or running spaceships, and it's basically the powering source of or the fuel of the entire universe for people. And so actually there is this guy who is plotting between this, who is putting Harkonnen family and the Atreides facing against each other. This Shaddam the Fourth is trying to plot to destroy the Atreides, who, if I remember correctly, is having, in his opinion, too much influence in the universe or in the Arrakis or in the known universe that they control. And well, he wants to get rid of the Atreides family.
yeah, and more specifically, it's the Space Guild that wants to get rid of Atreides.
Mm.
It's essentially the whole plot of Dune, which, to be honest, it really is not that complex. It's very simple. Chosen one, you killed my father, now prepare to die storyline. But it's told through different types of proxy wars.
Well, the
The House
film,
Harkonnen and Atreides think they are at each other's throat. The Harkonnen think that they are having this major plan to wipe out Atreides. In reality, that plan comes from the Emperor, who in the end gets his whole shit from the guild.
there you go. But if you look at the film, clearly the filmmakers thought that this is definitely nothing simple, and let's just put in all kinds of weird elements, half baked, not explained, and not focused on anything in particular, just throwing in a bunch of the elements from the book and just ending up with a complete mess. That's essentially Dune 1984.
I wouldn't take it that far. I would say that
Wow.
it depends on what you categorize as a mess. Is it a mess because it fails as an adaptation to the book,
It's a
or
mess.
is it a mess in? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's a mess because it doesn't have a centralized plot line. It has random elements that have been seemingly pasted in that are following each other, and at the end of it, we still don't know what the fuck really happened in this film, unless you read the book, of course.
Ah, come on, it's not that complex film. Like I said, the
There,
centralized plotline is really simple. It's
yeah.
it's
Well,
yeah 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 yeah.
sort
The
of,
whole Daddy-O bites it.
sort of, yeah. But if you don't stay focused in the first 5 minutes of the film, then you will lose everything. During the space alien bastards visit to the Shaddam the Fourth, that you really need to keep up with this conversation, otherwise you will kind of miss everything. And still,
Yeah,
and
yeah, that is true. It does demand that the audience pay attention.
yeah, yeah, certainly. And I see that the whole story of Dune, what the fuck is going on, is explained much better in the extended edition. So if you're going to watch this, then my recommendation definitely would go to the extended edition. There's only one problem: it's still dual film, and it lasts for 3 hours. So if you're up to it, go for it. It will at least make more sense, because in the theatrical cut there's a lot of concepts that are just not simply explained or not explained clearly enough.
Yeah, that is true. There are a lot of those in the original released cut. Then again, that with that out of the way, I wouldn't say that the film still is really that hard to follow. You do miss on some concepts. So, like for example, the weirding way and the whole mysticism of Paul is kind of a quickly glimpsed over. Also, some of the more intricate parts of the plotting that go on between the great houses and the emperor and the space guild. Yeah, certainly. But I would still say that it's not really that hard to follow the main plot line and kind of the main plot points
Well,
of the story, even in the shorter version of the film.
well, it's hard to follow some of the connections of people. What are their relations? Why are they working together? Why are they meeting right now? Why are they doing this right now? Where the hell is this person going? What is the some of the character motivations are kind of like, well, we just want to fuck each other over because reasons.
I would say that that's mainly a problem only during the last 15 to 30 minutes of the film. Like that problem really rises its head. I would say during the time when the final assault at the Emperor's palace happens in the story. Up until that point, it's not really. You only have a handful of players, which mostly become only from two powerhouses. You have the small group of the main Atreides characters, and then you have like three Harkonnens. Only one of them who does any plotting. And during all that, you have to keep kind of a side eye glance on the Emperor and the Spacing Guild. It's not really any kind of a. And this isn't like hidden under six different levels of deep or complex storytelling in any way.
No, the
And where I would say mostly the shifting alliances come into play in a way that it starts to be hard to keep track on. It's with the Penny Gesserits,
mm-hmm.
and that's something that happens only at the climax of the film when the head leader of the Penny Gesserits switches sides from the Atreides to the Duke or the Emperor. I mean.
Well, the biggest problem in the last 15-30 minutes is the fight scenes that you can't really tell what is going on. Yeah, there are people fighting against each other in these badly choreographed scenes where you don't really know where you are. There's just stuff happening, people flying, exploding, getting shot, and shit. And then there's one Paul Atreides riding a giant worm. And then,
Yep,
yeah,
yeah. That is pretty valid criticism. Then again, I would kind of have to ask, do you really need to? Because
no, but no,
what we are
no.
talking about is the mass fight scenes, where essentially cannon fodder is fighting against cannon fodder.
Listen, man, listen. Uh, so,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah. Go ahead, go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. I'm coming to yeah. So for the last week we didn't do an episode because I wanted to have more time for Dune. because I had been extremely busy otherwise, and also because I wanted to read the goddamn Dune book. Well, I had the ebook. I felt that I can't really concentrate because I'm being bombarded with shit on the cell phone all the time. So I went to the bookstore and they said that they don't have any available copies. I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm stuck with the ebook. And then I decided third option could work better going with the Audible edition, the audiobook of this book. But it didn't really work like that because I'm running around trying to concentrate on different things, and then you pretend that you're able to follow book of the magnitude of Dune when it comes to the level of detail that the writer has put into those books still. No, that didn't work. So I thought that okay, let's watch Dune 1984 already. So maybe this will kind of give me the kind of the basic grasp of what the fuck is going on. And then I watched the
Yeah.
film and I was even more confused. What the fuck is actually going on here? And then I go back to the book and I'm like, oh my god, there's 400 something pages. I'm never gonna finish this anyway. So let's go to YouTube and watch some videos. I still don't get it. What the fuck is this shit? And then I finally watched the extended edition and I'm like, oh, yeah, thank you. Like, finally, there's like a proper start for kind of explaining the concepts of the Dune right there in the first 5 minutes. Okay, got it. Thank you. So that's my journey of
Yeah,
Dune.
yeah.
So to
And
say that this is a simple story on the celluloid is kind of far fetched.
um, I, I get where you're coming from. Oh, obviously, and the points you make,
Maybe I'm just a
I
dumbass,
wanna
but
stress it
yeah.
out. I wanna stress them out to all our listeners. You are correct, especially when it comes to the film, because when it comes to the way how the narrative is being told in Lynch's film, it really is kind of a hot mess. It honest to God, it is. If your first contact with the story was through Lynch's film, I 100% understand why you are lost, because that was how I experienced the Dune originally myself also when I was something like 10. I too once checked out David Lynch's version when it came out of TV. And I too was pretty lost back in the day. But I still don't really see how Dune is that complex as a narrative. I do get it that there's a lot of complex themes going on, because it tells you a story where a tribe of nomadic sand people take one person as their space Jesus, and then it goes, it simultaneously it tells you how they see Paul as space Jesus, and how Paul himself kind of constantly is aware that no, this is all a hoax, and you have these kind of two different ways of seeing one character playing on top of each other at the same time. And certainly that's when it comes to a concept, that is something that can be pretty hard to grasp, or it might at least take you some effort that you can really put your brain around it. But I still wouldn't say that the story itself really is anyway that complex.
Well, it is complex for a film podcaster who's trying to figure it out to the finest detail. And here I can definitely say that there's a week or 2 weeks is not enough to understand all the concepts or the story of Dune as much as you would like to.
Yeah, yeah, and that once again, I do agree with you, because even as a book, the Dune is written in a way, and it's so full of basically everything that even if you would read it repeatedly, like 2 or 3 times, you might still find a new layer from the text. And obviously, with that kind of a source material, 2 weeks to do your background work, of course, it's gonna be a goddamn nightmare. And I would say even impossible to do, because you just physically don't have the time to read the main book again and again and again, and then also check out the film and study all the background information,
Yeah,
etc.
and then you find out that there's an extended edition, and you're like, oh god, do I have to check this out as well? Yes, you do have to. And in the middle of it, there is Helsinki International Film Festival going on, and I'm trying to kind of wrap my head around watching all these films running around the city and doing my own daily things, and then I'm forced to look at two versions of Dune and try to read the goddamn book in some supermarket's cashier queue. So fun times.
Yeah, yeah, obviously. Even though I must point out that when it comes to Helsinki International Film Festival, that was your own goddamn mistake.
No, no, that was the mistake of
Yeah,
Helsinki
yeah, no,
International Film
nobody
Festival.
forced you.
Yeah, they forced me.
Nobody forced you.
They forced my hand.
No.
They forced my hand. There is the all the films that I have been watching, the three of them that I have watched from this festival, they are so good. They are so able to select so fucking good films that you're just forced. I don't know how you're not here, but anyways, like if you come across the film Beasts Clawing at Straws, go watch it immediately. And Welcome to Chechnya. And obviously the Chai Min Liang's, to my actually surprise, Chai Min Liang's latest film after 7 years of a break from directing Days. We did watch Stray Dogs in this podcast before, so go listen to that. We could talk about great things like that, but we're stuck with a fucking Dune today.
Honest to God, man, I don't know. Are we being salty about the religion once again, or is that the homo thing going off?
This is all smacking at me at once, and this is just some point where I have had enough with all of this, with many concepts.
Oh my God. Well,
The
at least you can't say that the film haven't had an influence on you.
I don't know about influence, but it had, but it got the effect.
Uh,
Well, what's next? Let's talk about Sting. Sting is here almost naked and smiling like he knows exactly what he's supposed to do. And then there's some half-assed fight in the end, and it's over in like 30 seconds. And goodbye, Sting. Thanks for joining us.
yeah, when it comes to Dune, the Dune marketing originally heavily relied on the fact that Sting appears on the film,
Yeah.
and as anyone who has seen the film can vouch for, that was a really misplaced effort, because in the end you have, like you pointed out, you have something like 30 seconds of Sting. You have 5 scenes, if I remember correctly, in total of Sting.
Well, actually,
Two of them where the dude actually has a line or two.
goddamn, that the way that he is built up in this film and shown in a kind of a separate full shot when he is approaching from whatever, some kind of a weird module. I don't know if was he having a kind of a
Yeah,
bath there.
the Steam bathroom.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
And he comes in his
yeah, and
space.
he has those ridiculous space underwear, which has that wing thing going on.
Yeah, space alien wing underwear, and he's wearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's built in this film in a way that you would be expecting some kind of a huge ass battle, that he would be the kind of a prime target and the kind of a main antagonist even, but he's like taken care of like just like that. There's one Harkonnen in your midst, you slimy, disgusting biatch, and then he dies. And at the end of the film, we still don't know actually if the Atreides family or the Harkonnen family, who's actually the bad guy. Well, obviously, the Harkonnen leader is depicted in a way that he's definitely the antagonist because he has AIDS, he's gay, and kills his bed buddies. And but the way that you look at these people, I mean, they're not really that bad. They're just trying to take care of this pesky problem called the Atreides, who are kind of spreading their influence all over the fucking cosmos. So
Oh,
they,
oh my god, it's a genocide, man.
well,
That's what happens.
have you looked at the like
That's a bad thing in human history.
yeah, and look at Paul Atreides, what he's doing. At least in the sequel books, the guy is kind of like seen as a guy who knows that he's going to grab too much power and do a lot of bad things, but he just is like, all right, well, that's my faith or something, and I'm just gonna roll with it.
In sequel book Paul's defense, the whole jihad thing, which is what I guess you are referring here, it
Hmm?
happens outside of Paul's control. Like Paul, the first book pretty much is Paul trying to do everything he can to prevent the jihad, and the second book is just showing you that no, Paul failed and jihad happened because in the end things were out of his control.
Yeah, well, you have probably read them, so no further comment on that. How many goddamn books are there? Like six?
Oh boy, there's something like 18.
Yeah, if you count the kind of
Like,
the
yeah, yeah.
non-Herbert. Yeah, right.
Well, they are both Herbert because
Oh yeah,
Frank's son
yeah.
took the mantle afterwards,
I knew that.
and from there, yeah, yeah. But to listeners who don't know that, Frank himself wrote, if I remember correctly, 6 books, which in Dune are considered to be the main canon. And after his death, his son Brian joined forces. I don't remember with who, but basically it's a collaboration. All the rest of the books in the franchise, and from there you get to like God knows how many series. You have like Heroes of Dune, and you have the Prelude to Dune, and you even have some sequels to them to the end of the mainline books, if I remember correctly. So reading the whole Dune universe, it becomes kind of a jumbled mess where you first have to read the first the original Frank Herbert Dune, and then you have to read the Brian Herbert proto sequel prequel thing that happens before and after the first Dune book, between books 1 and 2 of the main canon, and then there's the House Atreides story, which is kind of a, if I remember correctly, now I'm going off my head here, is kind of a prequel to prequel thingy, and then there is a book that explains the Butlery and Jihad at that happened way back when, and going through all of these, that's the in the end that's the end game, complete Dune experience, if you want to go with the books. So
Yeah.
enjoy that clusterfuck.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a we are both kind of a completists when it comes to the information that we want to
Mm-hmm.
gather throughout the week about the particular film that we are dabbling with. But in this case, fuck you, Frank Herbert. I'm not gonna read six of your books and through do this podcast. Um,
And you don't need to. You honest to God, you don't need to, because the filming question doesn't really take that much from the later books.
okay,
It's just the first one.
yeah,
You might understand some things better. Would you had you read the later entries in the franchise, like for example the Butlery and Jihad? But even when Frank Herbert came up with the whole idea of Butlery and Jihad, it was never fully explored thing that happened in the universe. It was just a quick excuse, like quickly mentioned excuse in ages ago in our history. This thing happened, and because of that, no AIs.
yeah. Well, when it comes to the cast of characters here, I mean, it never gets really boring, or well, these are concepts that you have in Babylon 5 and Star Trek and all over the cosmos when it comes to sci-fi nowadays. But Well, we have this human computer dude with huge eyebrows. Then we have the guy who doesn't kill anyone due to his allegiance to some whatever it is. And a troubadour warrior teacher dude who helps Paul Atreides in his fighting skills with weird visual effects on top of it.
Yeah, the weird dude who doesn't kill anyone. You are referring to
Dr.
the
Yue.
medic?
Yue.
Yeah, Doctor Huey.
Yeah.
And with him, it's not so much any kind of a promise of woe that he's made, but it's that he's gone through a mental conditioning. Like he should be physically and mentally unable to kill anyone.
And one problem in this film is that there are many concepts that are just shown to you as they happen, but they are not primed earlier into the story. They just happen as we go on. So that is the case, for example, with the hunter seeker, which is kind of a cool concept to kill somebody. But that is kind of the one of the problems of the film. That things just appear. There's so much story to tell, at least according to the film, that we're used a lot of voiceover, and essentially the film is a big exposition show. And but I kind of actually, if I like something, I actually kind of like the voiceovers in parts of the film, but maybe it's overdone to convey some concepts in the film.
I actually, to me, the voiceovers are well not a problem, but I'm not a fan of them, and I do think that the voiceovers in the film are largely unnecessary. I don't think that the voiceovers are utilized in any meaningful way in the film. It is an interesting artistic attempt. It's an
Mm-hmm.
interesting artistic exercise from Lynch. And well, movies have always dealt with the problem when they are adapting the books. That in books you have much more freer reign on how much you actually explain to the audience. You have a completely limitless field on that regard. You can explain what the character thinks. You can have a monologue of character just wording out, explaining his thoughts. You can have flashbacks to the things that happened years ago or happen in future. There may be the precognition that is not even stemming from the characters, but instead from some kind of a godlike authoritarian narrator figure. That's all possible in the books, but you can't do that in film. And on that regard, Lynch's attempt here to somehow bridge the two, to have the inner monologue from the books worded out by the characters in the film, like I said, it is an interesting artistic exercise, and it might have led into something in the future, but I would say it's largely a missed attempt. And if something, it's a failure that shows to you that this trick really does not work in film.
Yeah, I was thinking about the exact same thing. That this is having kind of the book problem, that there's too much you want to say and things you want to do in the book way, but it's not working.
Yeah, and another problem here is that I feel that Lynch is kind of he's getting caught up with the whole I'm gonna have an artistic experiment thing here. Because the voiceover in the film, it rarely, if ever, actually gives you information that you most definitely would need to an extent that that voiceover is required. Like you have stuff like Paul's mom coming to seeing Paul of the conjugal test and being like, "My son lives," or Gaines when he's like goes like, "I like this dude," or when the characters are wondering, the sandworms are not attacking.
Mm.
Like none of that is information so vital to you that you can't a express that somehow visually in your film, and b something that the audience most definitely would have to catch up through the narrative mechanism that David Lynch uses here.
Yeah, there is when it comes to concepts that are kind of half baked and just appear without much of a development. I would say that that goes also to thing that is really kind of apparent when Paul Atreides meets the lady with the Furman people. There's like one scene where Paul Atreides goes like, "Oh yeah, she's really pretty, just like in my dreams," and then we have something completely not completely unrelated to that, and then we just have a shot where they kiss all of a sudden. So that kind of escalated quickly, and there's some dialogue part like, "I love you. I've always loved you,"
Yeah,
and this was piss poorly executed.
yeah, it was, and there's a lot of that kind of poor pacing going on in the film, especially in the original version. Of course, once again, one have to bear in mind that the original released version of Dune went through a heavy-handed studio meddling
Mm-hmm.
up until the point where like you mentioned in the beginning of the episode, David Lynch himself disavowed the film and refused to take credit for it.
And until to this day refuses, at least mostly refuses, to talk about Dune in interviews, and has refused many attempts and offers to that he would have the chance to make his own cut of the film. Well, I can perfectly see that it was a horrible experience, and secondly, I don't think he would even have a clue what to cut to make it the masterpiece that he would have in his head, because there is no such thing.
Yeah, pretty much. The two notions with that. Like you said, the experience left Lynch extremely sour. The, not only to a point where Lynch has repeatedly refused to ever revisit the film, but Dune also famously is the movie that permanently drove Lynch out of Hollywood. This was Dune was supposed to be Lynch's entry ticket into Hollywood, and the experience with the studio was so apparent, was so disgusting in Lynch's opinion that following Dune, has made it clear that he will never work within the Hollywood studio system ever again.
Yeah, I can't blame the fella.
And
Although I would say that this is still a David Lynch film to an extent, and I would say that it lands the responsibility for constructing the pacing and choosing to shoot certain scenes from the book, let's say, is also a responsibility of the director. So yes, studio meddling, yes, financiers and producers were meddling, but is it really fair though to because it seems like David Lynch is rolling the responsibility solely for somebody else here. Ah, no, not buying it.
Yeah, to be honest, me neither. I, I am with Lynch pretty far when it comes to blaming the meddling and the interference from the studio. But I too, even as a Lynch fan, I do have to admit that I also feel that David Lynch is putting too much blame on the interference and on the studio and the financiers of the film, because even from the the cut original release version of the film, Lynch's personality and his artistic side every now and then it really pushes through extremely strongly. At times this really is some of the best aspects of the film. On my end, I really love all the Lynch craziness that happens in the film that is not in the book. As heretical as that is, I know that the podcast will get burned down by basically all the Dune fans, but I do love all that disappearing David Lynch shit that we have in the film. But even with that out of the way, it has to be mentioned that not everything that Lynch does works in the film. There's a hell of a lot of things that Lynch pulls off that just plain up don't work. The narrative pacing, it does have problems to an extent where I do believe that like you mentioned, even David Lynch himself would be unable to fix it. And there are also some choices when it comes to direction, when it comes to characters, when it comes to presentation, when it comes to cinematography, that all very heavy-handedly read that yeah, these were David Lynch's choices and these just don't work. Like for example, the whole character of Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, who in the book is like extraordinary fat man. He's fat to the point where he has to have these sustainers, so some kind of a magnetic field sustainers around his body just so that he can even walk. That's the amount of fat that we have with Baron. And then in the Lynch's version, it turns into not so fat space herpes in his face, a lunatic who appears to be somewhat mentally challenged, and he flies around. Like that
Mm,
that's all David Lynch, and none of it works.
okay. Also, what I didn't get is that the apparently Mama already gave birth to this little baby gargoyle who has all the knowledge of a grown adult. Like during the runtime of this film, because first Paul is using his superpowers to read that, oh, my mama is pregnant with this girl, and now we see the girl at the end of the goddamn film. And how did that happen?
Yeah, the film tries to tell you that there's a time jump, two of them, if I remember correctly. But once again, that's something that you have to pay attention to, that you really catch up on.
Hmm.
And even if you recognize a time jump and you notice that oh yeah that's now happening, it even then essentially the level that the kid is at the very climax of the film, I would say that it doesn't completely hold water with the amount of time. I suppose the film is implying that we have jumped because from the film I gather that this is something like from 2 to 5 years. That's the amount of time that we are jumping
Yeah.
after the mom gives birth to the child to the end climax. Because there is a whole narration how Paul forms his guerrilla army, and they put the spice production to a halt and stuff like that. Obviously, that's going to take time, even though it's never said how many years this takes. But obviously, it takes time. But
Mm,
even with the time jump, I do have a problem with the kid, that the way how she is being presented in the film, I would say that she
mm-hmm.
appears hell of a lot older
In the
than
voice
what
and
she's supposed to be with the intended time jump.
yeah, that or maybe just she happened to grow up in a super magical way. But also the voice is of a older girl than what she is there, and the way that she just appears in the scene, like "Hello, I'm here," and no further introduction.
Yeah, yeah. That's spore work also. Also, since you mentioned the voice, obviously what they are supposed to do, they are
Yeah.
supposed to have the voice of the Bene Gesserits, which is supposed to be some kind of a like extreme form of personal profiling. Like the whole voice thing in the book is supposed to be that the Bene Gesserits are so extraordinary good. They have been so hardly trained to profile and read other people that they can just kind of change the tone of their voice to a level that it's subconsciously impossible for another person to resist their commands. That's
Yeah.
what all the voice fuckery also in Lynch's film is supposed to be. I don't think the voice works here. Like the way how the film utilizes this kind of an old, raspy, bit demonic female voice, something aching to The Exorcist, and in my opinion, it's kind of a failed attempt. It doesn't work. They are not really supposed to sound like that.
Yeah, looks like the Fremen got it all wrong. It's not gonna be the chosen one is not gonna be a boy. It's gonna be actually a girl because clearly this girl has some kind of a superpowers or more superpowers than I would say that at least Paul was supposed to have.
Yeah,
And
and no, not really. Like when it comes to the as you said it, the superpowers, what we are talking about really is kind of inherited memories and knowledge of the previous generations. That's the whole Bene Gesserit holier than those secret power
yeah,
where basically all of their control in this universe stems from. They have the possibility to try to gain to themselves the memories, the pitch perfect memories of previous generations. With the Bene Gesserits, the blind spot relies on the male and female chromosomes,
mm,
like because of chromosomes, the all-female Bene Gesserit order is completely unable to attain those memories from the males of this universe. They can only attain the past experiences of the females, and that's also the power that Paul's sister attains at the end of the film. Like the whole why she is the way she is because in the womb she already gets all those memories put into her when her mom drinks the water of life, and that whole mishap happens. And with Paul, on the other hand, he in the end turns out is the culmination of the two chromosomes. Like he can attain the memories of both sides. That's the whole Kisat Satarat thing. That's where the whole Bene Gesserit breeding program has been aiming all along.
mm.
It's in the end, it's nothing more than just a person who is physically capable of attaining and gathering into him the memories of both sexes.
Well, good thing that the film and the book got at least something right that could be realistic to see in 10,000 years into the future. Like we have the inverted Chinese way of dealing with your kids. We get rid of the or we do not want to have babies as boys, but want to have only girls. That's what happens when you have too much intersectional feminism, ladies and gentlemen. I kid, I kid.
Again, in the universe, everybody wants to have boys, because boys are supposed to be the ones who inherit the throne of the great house, and the girls are supposed to be basically, you know, those you marry to other houses. And of course, if you follow this to its logical extreme, you do notice that there is only three great houses in the whole Dune universe. The Atreides,
Mm.
Harkonnen, and Corian. Oh, what was the third house? But anyway, three great houses, and these political alliances have been going on for centuries, decades, thousands of years. God knows how long. Which, of course, when you think about it, means that only three great houses they are all marrying each other. So the inbreeding must be in pretty high levels here.
Yeah, that would explain a bunch of things.
Yeah, I mean the main bad guy, Vladimir Harkonnen, is actually grandfather to Paul, if I remember correctly. Oh,
Ooh.
yeah, because he is supposed to be Jessica's father, and then again, once again, Paul originally was supposed to be be born as a girl so that the Bene Gesserits could marry, well, her back to the Harkonnens. Like, Paul was supposed to marry the Fade Rautha, the Sting character of the film. So you know, they are all cousins in Dune universe. The great gift of Paul to the universe in the end is just that he stuck his dick into some Fremen, and through this act he actually finally introduces some new genes into the inbred gene pool of the great houses.
You have tens of thousands of worlds, and you're still not able to stop inbreeding. Good job.
No, no, no.
I told you that humanity has not apparently evolved at all.
Well, that's that's monarchies for you, man. Like,
Yeah, we are.
do you have a king in your country? Perhaps a reason to get troubled right now.
Oh, well, that's pretty much Dune, and those beautiful end credits. You can think of them before going to sleep. Favorite performance? Well, I think it's mostly atrocious performances. Must be direction is kind of confused here. I have no idea why this is going the way it is. It's too theatrical. It's too red. It's too many things. But maybe Kyle MacLachlan. Let's go with that.
Yeah, I don't have your problem with the performances. Outside of couple of characters, like for example, Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, who is nothing like in the book. But yeah, I too pick Kyle.
Favorite quote? Go ahead.
Would be that the entire fear is the mind killer mantra.
Well, I would go with something that I believe is only in the extended edition. Quote, "Behold, as a wild ass in the desert go I forth to my work." Whatever that really is supposed to mean. Is he mocking the book? Or is this BS space hierarchy mocking? Or anyway, funny line. Even Kyle is laughing at it. So, favorite kill: Sting getting stung.
I don't know. On my end, perhaps that one dude who gets his heart plug pulled off by Baron Harkonnen and blood spews all over.
Totally random and didn't make any sense to me.
No, but it goddamn looked cool.
Yeah, because HIV blood must show how the gays operate in the universe.
Oh, come on. Seriously. Straighten up a bit here.
I can't, I'm gay.
We kind of we you know, get out of this podcast, you hobo. Like we have a style and a reputation to uphold.
What seriously?
Something see, Kyle.
I'm completely lost with this because this was supposed to be smooth sailing, talking about and ridiculing the homo aspect of the film, which doesn't make any goddamn sense, even still.
It does. If you take the approach that gays are the blight of the universe.
Yeah, exactly. Lovely 80s. Gotta love the 80s. David.
Yeah, go ahead.
David Lynch, I would like to ask you a few questions. Or maybe I gonna get it why David Lynch is not willing to talk about Dune. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, nothing. I was just supposed to tease you more with the whole gay characters. I think
Yeah,
we can move on. We can move on.
Yeah. Just shut it, you straight cis male.
I must tell you, man. This is fucking priceless on my end at the moment. Jesus Christ. Like literally Jesus Christ, because Jesus also hates.
Yeah. What drew me in was some visuals. I mean, it's kind of impressive with this budget that they are able to do all these effects that they pulled off, but the main praise goes for the cinematography, which I think is quite enjoyable for the most part of the film.
I on my end, if I would have to thank something from this film, like one aspect, to me it would be the visuals.
Mm. Especially the gooey spaceship alien flying and bending space and
More specifically, that same bugger in the tank when he's being first introduced, like that really does look alien and hideous and disgusting, like something that has gone through couple of centuries worth of mutations, and it's way more intriguing and exciting than the pretty bland CGI effect that we got in the Dune miniseries by Sci-Fi Channel. Also, something that I really loved was those shots of the spaceships when they are flying in the while they are traveling through space. Even though a lot of these effects these days they do show their age, but I would say that they show it in a positive way where they are still pretty interesting to look at. And overall, the film this is a colorful film. There's a hell of a lot of color, and there's a hell of a lot of things in these shots, like big tables and garments that look like military uniforms, and that space cute navigator, which looks absolutely like malformed fetus. Like there's a lot to see in Dune.
well, when it comes to color, yeah, there is a lot of brown color for sure. There's a lot of dunes here, man. And when it comes to scenes that don't really work when they are supposedly adapted from book to the film is that space alien flying and bending the space. That was kind of awkward. Also, the music in that I felt was kind of pretty hilarious, unintentionally hilarious. Toto playing guitar. But yeah,
Yeah. Like not every shot is a goddamn masterwork here. There's a lot of also bad visuals,
yeah.
including also the Baron Harkonnen heart block kill, which happens in a room which essentially is just a gigantic green screen.
But what would you change in the film? How would you improve the film in the Scissor of Sacrilege section of this podcast?
I would trim off some of the goofiness, make it more book related, and with that I would remove some of the adaptational differences or freedoms that Lynch takes. I would trim the way how the film tells itself, the overall narration of the film, and I would remove the narrator voices of the characters.
Yeah, oh god, the narrator voice or the narrator performance, especially in the beginning of the theatrical cut. And that's fortunately cut out completely in the extended edition. But there's a different kind of narration going on with the guy. How would I improve this? Well, I would improve it by feeding the film to a worm. Start from the scratch. Back to the drawing board, guys.
Well, that's what basically everybody has tried to do. Jarodowski tried to do it,
Yeah.
and what I've understood from that production, it was a complete fucking nightmare. Sci-Fi Channel tried to do it. Well, yeah, that was I would say even worse than Lynch's version. And now Denis Villeneuve tries to do it, and judging by the trailer, it looks that the film is even more void of color and even more barren of basically everything than Lynch's version.
Mm-hmm. Guess we'll have to wait and
It's a
see.
hell of a lot of large rooms where you have a table and two guys and a chair.
It's like we have a successful book. Like, How in God's name are we going to make this work on the silver screen? Because I want my monies. I want my monies from this project because we have the rights to do this. Let's do it. And oh no, one guy is out of the window and the next guy is out of the door and it's still not working. David Lynch, come and save us. Here's the result. Okay, that's harsh. But yeah. Three adjectives to describe Dune.
Mine would be artistic, beautiful, and confusing.
Unfocused, dull, dumb. Would you recommend this film, Dune 1984 Henrique?
Uh, that's a hard question.
Oh my god.
Well, it is because I don't have your goddamn hatred towards this film.
Okay. I think this was this, and yeah, go ahead.
uh, I I guess kind of no. At the end of it, I like Lynch's Dune, not hell of a lot, but somewhat. I do think that it is artistically it's interesting piece of filmmaking. That there are attempts that you don't really see elsewhere, and attempts that are interesting to witness. I love the visuals most of the time, and I love the Lynchian weirdness that happens, even though I do have to admit that it doesn't work as an adaptation. But even with all that I like in the film, it's still it's the goddamn Stanley Kubrick, that shining thing, where the end result is so devoid of the book that it's trying to adapt that you can't really look at David Lynch's Dune as an adaptation. And on the other hand, you kind of have to have the experience of reading Frank Herbert's book to understand everything that happens in Lynch's film. And not everything that Lynch does on his own film really works. So it's kind of a clusterfuck really to experience. It's an interesting clusterfuck to me to experience. I found a lot of enjoyment of watching the Dune. I do think it's one of the it is a hell of a lot better adaptation, or not a, it's a worse adaptation than the miniseries that followed it, but it's definitely more interesting adaptation than the miniseries. But even with all the personal positives that I have, I still would find it hard to recommend checking this one to another person. If you choose to do it, if you already seen it, well then I think you didn't waste your time. It was time well spent. But I still just kinda can't bring myself to recommend the movie.
Okay, I'm pushing you to the next follow up question. Thumbs up or thumbs down, Henrik?
I guess I would have to give thumbs down because I can't recommend it.
Right. Seems to be kind of a hard question sometimes in this podcast, like what to do with this. Or what do you really want to say with your, do you recommend? Do you count yourself out of it or completely, or what is the meaning of would you recommend?
Yeah, and
Mm.
like I like said in the previous episode, these are the moments where it really where the end rating system that we have implemented to ourselves in here kind of really shows its colors. Because once again, if we would have like from 1 to 5 stars, this would be easy 2.5 or 3,
Mm.
and that's it, at least from my end. But once again, when you have to answer the question, would I recommend it? Would I go to another person and say, hey, you should check out this film? It starts to have all these other implications and other nuances than the question.
Yeah, and my response is no. I mean that there's I think it's just that the Frank Herbert's universe in total it's just not appealing to me. I had serious issues even getting into the book because it's hard to read a book that you're trying to read forced because there's just nothing there for me. And this is the kind of sci-fi that does absolutely fucking nothing for me. And then there's a shitty film adaptation of it, so you do the math with your spice-powered brain. But no, I find that this might be even some kind of a, without knowing Frank Herbert or really reading much into him, it seems that this is a kind of a guy who is, it might be just trying to cash in with some kind of a half-baked ideas in the way that I see what is going on here. I mean, okay, when he wrote the books, these were apparently revolutionary, many of these things, or at least they were used later on in sci-fi literature, and but it just seems too easy to me. I don't find anything that would appeal to me. These concepts are just coming from what we already have or have had, mixed up with some magical superpowers, which are not magical superpowers. But
Yeah,
this is, yeah,
on my end, I kind of had to counter argue, not with with the whole question, can you get in the book, or is there anything in the book for you? That's a question of a personal taste and opinion, and whatever suits you. Essentially, I can't like command you to like something. That obviously is out of the cards. But I do think that in Frank Herbert's book there is a lot of things that are still somewhat new and novel even today when it comes, for example, science fiction. And with this, I do mean the whole kind of a taking the concept of religion, taking the concept of myths to apart, deconstructing them. The whole mysticism isn't real, pre-planted religions. All of these aspects, I do think that those are something that really still even today hold some novelty in science fiction.
you're the expert. You really know you're watching Dune 1984 when?
When you are milking your cat and fondling your heart plug and thinking, thank God I'm straight.
Yeah, what the hell was that all about?
I don't know. I don't know, but I most definitely did love it.
You really know you're watching Dune 1984 when two men in love ride a giant worm to fight against another gay man who floats and is named Harkonnen and has AIDS.
But as a closing words to today's episode, I would like to point out that the original book came out in 1961, so it's almost to a date 20 years after the Pearl Harbor attacks, and 6 years after the war in Vietnam started. And in this book, the Fremen are radicals who willingly and successfully utilize kamikaze attacks, and where they use guerrilla tactics to attack from cave systems, underneath cave systems, to do a surface level targets. On top of that, this is a book where essentially desert valley nomadic people get invaded by militaristically superior society, and the reason for that attack is that the more advanced militaristic side wants to steal the nomads natural resources for them. And in the end, in the book, the desert valley nomads are being shown to be the good guys.
I kind of like that.
And for some odd reason, this book is really liked in US. Like, what the hell, Yanks? Get your shit together. What don't you get in grasp in the concept of desert people, military power, natural resources,
Mm.
kamikaze attacks? Like, seriously, Yanks, just please sort this shit out, because this is hella confusing to us in Finland.
Well, it's just Well, this explains a lot of things. I think Colin Powell had been reading too much Dune.
Well, if he had read his fair share of Dune, he would have known that, it's gonna end tits up. Because that's the whole end of the Dune. Didn't work out as you were planning, now did it?
Yeah. He was too intrigued about trying to be Harkonnen.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, that's Dune 1984. And yeah, I guess you don't have any further than that, so we can start to close up for this week. Any questions?
Nope.
Good. I'm out of here.
Until next week, our beautiful listeners.
There's one Harkonnen in your midst, you slimy, disgusting biatch. Ja katkaisen
Ja
nauhoituksen.
katkaisen nauhoitukset.